In studio for the first time here on the Rich Eisen Show, one of the stars of Outer Banks and Valiant One in a theater near you nationwide this coming Friday. Chase Stokes, good to see you, brother. How are
Thanks
you?
for having me, man.
I agree. That's an applause line.
Oh.
I agree. Sure is. Well, he's only applauding because his name is Chris Brockman.
Yes.
And you play the
okay.
role of Sergeant Brockman.
I do.
And I think, he's also a fan of Outer Banks. I should stop talking for you.
Thank you. I'm one way right here.
Okay, correct.
Thank you.
2 for 1.
So this is a film about you playing the role of a sergeant who finds his way in North Korea, of all places, because
Yeah.
you're stationed in South Korea, and you are out there. What did you like about this script, man?
Oh, I just thought it was like a very non-traditional military film. You know, it's this kid who joins the Army sort of with all of the ideas after he gets out. And he's trying to set himself up for success in the world after he serves. And unfortunately, gets put in a situation that is far beyond anything he'd ever expected. And it just seemed fresh. It seemed new, and he's kind of a quirky dude, and it just felt like a lot of fun to do.
Well, the radio audience has just rejoined us here on the Infinity Sports Network and SiriusXM. Chase Stokes. We just saw a clip of Valiant One, which is available in theaters nationwide Friday, January 31st, right at the end of this month. Make a note of it and see Valiant One wherever you can in a theater near you. And how much training did you do for this role, Chase?
So we ended up, we shot this in Vancouver, which is on the same latitude line as North Korea, hilariously enough. So there's some similarities there. Yeah, I was shocked on that.
Okay.
Fun fact of the day.
There you go. Vancouver and North Korea. Had no idea.
And we had a gentleman by the name of Todd Sharbett. He is a 25-year Navy SEAL Master Sergeant veteran who was our military advisor on this film.
Okay.
And he was just the coolest dude ever. And he put us through a whirlwind of training. So we did about 2 weeks in Vancouver before we started. And it was just kind of a life-changing experience. Now a lifelong friend and somebody that I've gotten to know really well. But he was very particular about how everything was put together. And if there were scenes that were done that didn't look authentic, he shut it down immediately.
Would he yell?
He would jump in.
He would yell cut?
I mean, it scared me more than any pyrotechnics or live fire. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, Todd's coming in. Got it.
Yeah, because you don't want to disrespect. You want to respect. That's all you want to do. You know?
I was born in Annapolis. My great-grandfather and my grandfather both served. So it was very important to me to honor the integrity of our military and be transparent about how they actually operate and give a voice to people who feel like maybe they don't have a voice.
And I imagine you wanted to do something as well that's different from Outer Banks as well. Although this is an outer, it's not a bank, but this is definitely
it's outside.
It's outside the DMZ. That's correct.
Yeah, I think I'm at this point in my career. The show's coming to a close, and I don't want to be John B. forever. And it's been a blessing to play him and a place in my heart that I will hold near and dear. But at 32 years old, playing a teenager is getting a little exhausting. So trying to age out a little bit and do the next right thing.
Okay. So it's exhausting playing a teenager that you're like literally twice the age of a teenager.
Yeah, like sometimes you read things and you're like, why is he doing that? And I'm like, oh, because I'm 32. Logically, my brain has developed enough to not think like a teenager. So, as time progresses, you start to get frustrated with that push and pull. But it's been fun, man. It's been the most incredible start to my career and something that has become like a baby to myself and to the rest of the cast. So, yeah, I think, when you get sort of categorized as a specific character, your natural progression is how do I not get categorized as that character? So I think I went, about as far the opposite direction as possible. I shaved my head on the last day of filming the 3rd season.
Okay.
Yes. And it felt like a clean break a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's one way to make a clean break because I do this out of necessity. Right. With what I've got on top of my head right now. So, obviously I understand that would be a clean break.
Yeah. It was the aerodynamics were pretty incredible. Going from the floppy hair to a little less than nothing.
Well, we've had Jonathan Davis on this program.
Love that. I was at dinner with him last night,
and he's just good people.
He's great.
He's also real tight with Bijan Robinson.
Good old Bijan.
I don't know. I know you're a Georgia guy, right?
I am,
but you're more Bulldogs than Falcons, pretty much, or what?
It was definitely good this year. Sorry to all the Longhorn fans, but it was good to see the Dogs get that win.
Right.
Sorry to put it
So
that way.
how did you? So you grew up in the area? Is that,
Yeah,
is that
I
your
grew
connection?
up just outside of Atlanta, Cherokee County.
Right.
And you got to kind of choose between Georgia Tech and Georgia, and Athens just seems like a way cooler place. So, yeah, I've just always been a Bulldog fan, and hell of a time to be a Bulldog fan.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's kind of funny because again, your character in Valiant One is named Sergeant Brockman, and you're in real life a Bulldog fan.
Yep.
That's Chris Brockman over there, who is essentially what?
I've kind of adopted Georgia in a
There
way.
you go. I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
my lady is diehard Georgia, so it's been on a lot in the house. My college football team has not been good for a long time, and so it was easy to kind of.
He's a Syracuse
Root
guy,
for them,
otherwise.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
know.
I mean, the Dome's cool. It's a cool place to
The
play.
Dome is
but
cool.
I hear you. Yeah.
But it's been rough.
tough. It's
so
tough.
it was easy to root for the Dogs. Very
It
likable
is.
team.
It is. My girlfriend's actually from Knoxville, so we have a serious divided house with football. Being
So
honest.
were you rooting for Tennessee against Ohio State? Is that just because of that? Or?
So to make it even more complex,
Yes.
my stepdad, he actually went to Ohio State.
Oh,
So
okay.
I have a stepdad who's an Ohio State fan. My girlfriend is a Vols fan, and my siblings and I are Bulldog fans. So it is like the triangle of chaos.
Yes, indeed.
In my life for college football.
But your girlfriend trumps your stepfather, right?
For sure.
Okay, let's be honest
well,
here.
think about it. What was it? It was almost 3 years ago now that Georgia beat Ohio State.
That is in fact correct.
Yes.
Because I'm a Michigan Wolverine. So
we can get along.
We can get along certainly when we're taking on
Right.
the Ohio State University. Like
Gonna say
my
it's-
children, I've got 3 of them. They all understand there's 2 teams to root for: Michigan football and anybody that's playing against Ohio State. And that even included Notre Dame on Monday night, which was really weird for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that feel?
It didn't. It was terrible, and I'm done with it. Like literally, like,
done.
it was
Yeah.
a one night only situation.
Ooh.
The curtain came down. We're closed. We closed after one performance, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. That's
unless
a
of
tough
course
one.
they play each other in the national championship game again. But I was a Tennessee fan for one night as well.
Yep.
Didn't work
Get
out
that.
for me.
No.
But it didn't work out for your girlfriend either.
It
I know
didn't.
that, but for sure, I would root against Ohio State any day of the week.
Yeah, that was
So-
that national championship was a tough evening in
Oh,
our household. We
was
were
it?
all
Really?
sitting around the couch. Oh yeah, I mean, 3 boys who are all Georgia fans versus my stepdad. It's
Oh, I remember that night.
outmanned and
Well,
outnumbered
that was
a little bit.
Well, I remember that night because just as Ohio State was kicking either the game-winning field goal or the end of the game, if they missed it, the ball was dropping on the East Coast.
Yep.
And my 2 of my 3 kids are not into football.
Yep.
They were like, let's watch the ball drop. My youngest son, we had just gotten back from Arizona. We had just landed where Michigan lost to TCU earlier in the day. And I flipped the channel to watch the ball drop. And I knew when I hit the, return button on my remote, I was either going to be completely heartbroken because Ohio State had advanced, Michigan would not after Michigan had beaten Ohio State.
Yep.
Or I would be thoroughly elated. And it was a happy new year.
It's a win-win right there.
It was.
That's a win-win in
I
my
like
book.
that you call it a win-win. I've got Chase Stokes here on the Rich Eisen Show. But your first connection with sports is ice hockey? Is that a true story?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom, biological father, first stepfather, her current husband is the Ohio State fan. Her second husband, he born and raised in Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Yes.
Grew up playing hockey. Herb Brooks was his coach for forever.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Herbie and my grandfather actually were golf partners for a long time.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
fun fact of the day. So it was kind of just ingrained in me as a young kid. Sort
Okay.
of shoved me on the ice, and it was like a beautiful connective tissue between him and I. And we lived in the Southeast where hockey was really starting to take off.
Right. The Florida Panthers were coming into being, right? Atlanta.
Yeah, that was back when the Thrashers were around.
The Thrashers.
I played for the Junior Thrashers back in the day.
You did?
I did.
How about that?
Yeah,
Do you
I
still
got
have
my-
a sweater from the Junior
Sure
Thrashers?
do. I have the baby blue one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I.
All right.
My first time getting ejected out of a game was checking from behind, playing for the Junior Thrashers. So
All right.
I was an aggressive player.
So what do you mean you got ejected? You got a major misconduct?
A major misconduct. That was the first of many. I little anger issue,
Chase.
youth hockey. Yeah. Had a
Okay.
little fun doing
You
it.
worked out your
did.
youthful anger
I took it
on
from
the
that
ice.
into yelling on camera, I think. It's the
Okay,
best
that
way to
makes
put
it,
it.
by the way, much safer for others.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a less hostile environment at times. But yeah, I played pretty competitively up until I think it was like concussion number 7 or 8 and a torn rotator cuff. And then the doctor was like, "Hey, here's the thought. You can keep playing hockey, or you can remember the conversations with your grandkids." And I was like 17.
Get
And
out
I-
of here.
I remember thinking like, that's such a heavy thought for a 17-year-old to have.
Yeah.
I'm going to quit hockey. Yeah. So I gave it up and sort of realigned and tried to figure out what was next in
Well,
life.
when did you turn to acting then? Right then and there?
No, so I had been doing television production in high school, and hilariously enough, my teacher was from Michigan.
Okay.
So he was a big hockey guy, and I took the class solely to sleep in because I would have practice till late and drive home, and he would give me the first 20 minutes of class to
Smart
sleep in.
kid.
And I was producing, so I was behind the camera, so I didn't really have to be present.
So you
in front
could
of it.
sleep in and just roll out of bed.
Yeah, and I was
Okay.
like, all right, let's switch to the weather. Roll it, pushing buttons that I didn't really know what was going on in the back.
Nice.
And,
That's what our sound guy does anyway,
it's
so
just
don't
like
worry
a
about it.
beep-bop,
That's what our
beep-bop
audio
type of thing,
executive
pushing buttons, a couple levers here and there.
Understood. We get it.
And then one of the girls got sick, and I knew run a show, so they were like, you got to get on the desk. And I was like, not doing that. Absolutely not.
Like an anchor?
An anchor on the morning announcements. So I ended up doing it, and I just kind of made a fool of myself because that's my self-deprecating way of making things feel normal.
Okay.
And he was like, you should get into acting. And I was like, all right. I was living in Orlando, Florida at the time, so I don't really know how that
Okay.
operates. And
Sure.
I eventually found my way onto IMDb, and back in the day, they had back in the day, I make it sound like I'm talking about the 50s, but when I was in
Well,
high school.
you are 32 and having been around a while already.
Yeah, I've been around
Don't
the
worry about
block,
it, man.
But I got IMDb Pro, and they used to have all the agents' emails on IMDb Pro.
I remember this.
And so I'd made a business Gmail and claimed to be a manager, saying I've got this young kid from Orlando, Florida, who's got a great look and a lot of potential. And I emailed everybody, and like one dude responded, and that was my first agent, and that's where it all started.
Well done.
Nice.
Do you remember we got an
Well done.
IMDb Pro account when we started the podcast to try and reach out directly to PR people to get guests?
Yep.
It might have been right around the same time you got an IMDb Pro
I feel
account,
like I'm
man.
responsible as to why nobody has their emails on
2011, something
IMDb
like
anymore.
that.
Is that right?
Like that's probably my fault.
Is that right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
Nobody
huh?
does it anymore.
And so what was your first gig?
My first gig was actually an episode on the show Stranger Things. So I had
By the way, great first gig.
doesn't suck. Yeah, did not suck. I had tested for both of the lead roles and did the table read back in the day when they were all tiny.
Did you meet
kids.
Spielberg at any point in time?
I didn't. I met the Duffer Brothers. I met the rest of the cast.
Okay.
Seeing Winona Ryder in person made me freak out internally and externally. I mean, an icon, truthfully. And then, yeah, they literally called 5 months later and were like, hey, we really appreciated Chase putting forth the effort. Like, we have a small little bit part for him. So
Right.
I drive by in one of the episodes and yell something at one of the main characters and
Okay.
go on my way. So that was kind of the first one, and started doing commercials and all that. And then after college, I just packed my car and on my way.
And how'd you wind up on the Outer Banks radar screen? I asked this of Jonathan, so I'd love to get your 2 cents on yours.
my experience versus Jonathan's was a little bit different. I had gotten the audition, and so a casting director that had booked me on a couple jobs, her name's Lisa Fincannon, an incredible person.
Yes.
They sent the casting over, and they sent the breakdown, and it said John B., 4 friends on a treasure hunt. I thought it was a Goonies reboot immediately because they make the pseudo names and they don't want to give all the information. And,
Right.
so I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And I shouldn't have, because, early in your career, when you have $8 in your bank account, you should take any opportunity available.
Yes.
And a couple months later, they reached out and they were like, hey, we still don't have our guy. Will you read for this? And I was like, nope. Not going to be responsible for destroying the Goonies for this generation. That's not on my bingo card.
Respect.
And so they sent the script, and one thing led to another. I realized it was not the Goonies. It was different.
Yes.
And I read for it. 5-6 days later, I got a call. They said, you're taking a red eye to Charleston to meet with the creators. 4 days later, I got the job. I asked to go home to get my clothes, and they said, you can't leave. And I literally was using clothes from the costume department because I came with like a pair of shorts, flip-flops, and 2 T-shirts because I just didn't think I was going to get the job. So that was where it started for me, and it's almost been 6 years.
Changed your life, right?
Wow.
It did. Yeah, very thankful for that show and the people around it. I mean, like I said, Jonathan and Madison Bailey were both not just co-stars; they're like family. We were at dinner last night, just kind of talking about it, reminiscing on how crazy the last couple of years have been, and how much it has truthfully changed our lives.
Craziest thing they've asked you to do on that show?
Oh, I don't want to get in trouble, but I've done some wild things. I mean, I jumped off of like the third story of a boat this season. Speaking of concussions in ice hockey, I did get a concussion shooting Outer Banks. We were doing a scene, and I think it was the second season, and a plane crashes, and we jump out of a plane, and
Yes.
one of my co-stars pushed the door open that I was holding, and came back, hit me in the head, and knocked me out cold, and ended up in a hospital in Barbados, getting a CAT scan, looking at my dome.
A Barbados hospital.
Yeah, that's a fun experience. Yeah.
Wow.
It's fun, pretty fun. They had, all I remember is sitting there just entirely out of it, and they had a fish tank in the X-ray room, and I was like, how are these fish alive in an X-ray room? But whatever. Yeah,
Are they
were
X-ray
thriving.
fish, though? Isn't there such a thing as an X-ray fish?
Made me
and
feel at peace.
So what's the plot point that you needed to have explained to you over the last few years where you're like, okay, wait a minute. That you get a script and you're
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, this is what we're doing? Or like, what
I think every season, honestly. Like,
Come on now.
We keep getting, well, I think the treasure hunt, like these kids are pretty incompetent, and they somehow find their way into
Yeah.
these insane situations and then get out. So I think, when we get our scripts, we build as we go. So we don't get the entire season up front.
Is
we
that
sort of
right?
get like a shell of an outline of the world that they're building.
Why do they do that?
I think it's they see things as it happens.
Okay.
I think, our writers are really great about giving us the space to build within the script.
Uh-huh.
And, that's just a product of working together for so long, and they trust us. So, you see this, like this last season, we went to Morocco and are going after this blue crown. And I'm like, how are we going to Morocco? Like, is this a real thing? How do we make this happen? And every year we do it. And it's just been a byproduct of a ton of hardworking people who will admittedly tell you it is the most difficult, physically demanding show they've ever done in the business. But it is also, in that same sentence, the most gratifying show that they have ever done. So it's awesome, man. Like it feels like a mountain that you look at and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to get up there. But year after year, season after season, we do it. So I'm very excited to give it one last run and move on to hopefully ending the show and landing the plane. That's important to me. It's not how the plane takes off, it's how you land it.
Well, let's just hope when the plane lands, the door doesn't hit you in the head.
That,
we don't need any more, man.
Hopefully the landing gear is working.
We don't
Yeah.
need any more of that, Chase.
None of it. I'm 32.
Tell me about Tell me about
time.
Mark Men, which is available in theaters today, will be available on VOD in February. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, so Marked Men is directed by the incredible Nick Cassavetes, who's done, My Sister's Keeper, Alpha Dog,
The
John
Notebook?
Q, The Notebook, the little movie.
Terrell Owens' favorite movie, I believe. The
Is it
Notebook.
really?
Yes, indeed. He has said
Softy,
that.
all right.
It's-
I like it.
Hey, listen,
In touch with his emotions.
he has
you,
been
Terrell.
for a long time.
I like that.
as well. I've been in a poker hand with Nick Cassavetes.
Oh.
That does not surprise me. Knowing Nick, like
I-
he loves his cards.
He
Loves
sure
some poker.
does. I've spent a night with him around a poker table.
He's such a good dude.
It was
He's such
fun
a
listening to
great
his
guy.
stories.
So many stories.
Oh my God, I know.
You think as soon as he's done with one that there's no way he's going to top it.
I know. And then he says the words all in. You're like, all right, I'm out.
You're like, I'm going to go home. Yeah, I'm going to go to bed. So Marked Men, directed by Nick, follows these two characters, Rule and Shaw. They've kind of been family friends for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And it starts 3 years after the tragic death of Rule's twin brother. And he's never really forgiven himself. His family hasn't forgiven him. And he sort of has shelled himself off from the world. And Shaw seems to be somebody who sees a light in him that he doesn't see in himself. And in a set of circumstances, they start to fall for one another. And it's a very unconventional love story of two people who don't make a lot of sense. But once you get to know them, they make all of the sense.
Brother, nice to meet you in person,
Pleasure, man. Yes.
And come back anytime. You got a lot going on in your career,
Appreciate
and I appreciate you coming on and chopping it up about Valiant One, available in theaters on the final day of the month, Friday, January 31st. Marked Men is available in theaters today, available on VOD in February, and Outer Banks renewed for a 5th and final season coming soon to Netflix. Good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.
You got it. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.